Introduction and purpose. This lab was intended to compare the experimental results of a constant velocity experiment to the computed result of the same experiment modeled in GlowScript. It is also meant to demonstrate Newton's second law. For this experiment, we defined constant velocity as traveling at the same speed and same direction for the entirety of the experiment. We used a car and rail system with a single push and no other interference after that for the entire experiment. Software used for the analysis. We used Tracker to break down into time intervals and find the change in position, and we used GlowScript to create a model for the predicted outcome. In the experiment, we found that the car did not actually have a constant velocity, but actually slows down at the end due to a variety of different forces. This shows our tracker simulation, or not simulation, but experiment. Each of the red dots shows the change in position after a set delta t. For us, because we filmed at a rate of 30 FPS, it should be approximately 1/30th of a second. In order to find the initial velocity, we had to start with taking and subtracting the first data point of position from the second and dividing that by the change in time. This yielded a 1.15 meters per second velocity in the positive x direction. Using this, we were able to set up the position update formula, which takes the initial position and adds the velocity times the delta t to get the next position. And for the velocity update formula, because fnet equals to 0 throughout this experiment, or it should, it essentially cancels out the right side of the plus sign and forces you to or not forces, but makes you see that final velocity should equal initial velocity, or velocity should remain constant throughout the experiment. Our results, the orange points indicate the computer prediction. This line is very linear, showing that because of a constant velocity, each position should be equidistant from the last over an equal amount of time because it should be traveling at the same speed throughout. The blue points show our actual observations. As you can tell, it kind of tapers off and curves off at the end, showing that there is not actually a constant velocity throughout the experiment. It kind of slows down, whether that is friction or air resistance. It just shows that it slows down and it's not a constant velocity. For our GlowScript analysis, the top code initializes the vector starting position and initial velocity and sets delta t to be that 1/30 second because of the frame rate. And we also started at time equals 0.192 because in our video I could not easily start at time equals 0. And the bottom code shows that fnet is equal to 0, showing that, and runs the position and velocity update formulas. Fnet being set to 0 shows that the velocity update formula essentially just says it's going at a constant velocity. The final equals the initial. Possible errors and what ifs. Possible errors include forces that make fnet not equal to 0, like friction or air resistance, rounding errors that cause miscalculations, or not selecting the correct center of mass. So each of the updates in position would not be equidistant in tracker. Or what is? What if the negative and positive x directions were switched? That would just show that our slope would be negative instead of positive. And what if fnet wasn't 0? In our Observation, it wasn't. There was some force, whether it be friction or air resistance, that slowed it down. It's pretty difficult to tell how many of these forces there were.